Welcome to today's web lecture. As agreed, the fourth lesson would be a web lecture on blue ocean strategy. And the title for today's web lecture is Looking Beyond the Social Imaginary and Creating Authenticity. My objective is to give you my view on what we learned on innovation so far and elaborate on the focal points of the blue ocean strategy. To grasp this lecture, you need to be on speed on the 6 principles of the blue ocean strategy, the formulation and execution principles. We talked about that innovation is a mindset and strategy and not just about problem solving and creativity. The act of innovation is to search resources with a new capacity to create wealth. Invention itself is not an innovation, not just something new, because creating something new doesn't always work if you don't have an audience for it. Innovation is the creation of better or more effective products, processes, services, technologies, or ideas that are accepted by markets, governments, and society. Later on, by explaining social imaginary, I will elaborate on this. You can say that innovation is turning ideas into money. And blue ocean strategies, value innovations, are best investigated and created outside the current business unit of a company. The reason for this is that it's very difficult to think out of the box in an established business unit. For this reason, a company like Google was not created by Microsoft, or Skype was not created by British Telecom. Let's talk about value innovation. This is more than innovation. It is about strategy. Strategy that embraces the entire system of a company's activities. Now, how do you do that? You can create the framework which can help you make changes. Changes to reduce cost and increase buyer value. The famous 4-action framework. First of all, which of the factors that the industry takes for granted should be eliminated? Which factors should be reduced well below the industry standard? Thirdly, which factors should be raised well above the industry standard? And fourthly, which factors should be created that the industry has never offered? Breaking from the competition and creating blue oceans require finding commercially compelling blue ocean opportunities. It goes without saying that companies will need to take a small risk for those opportunities that look like commercially viable and successful. The problem is that companies in a red ocean are not thinking about creating a new category of customers. For instance, we are in the smartphone business. So how do they think? They think like, so we need to produce a phone which has more features. They focus on the same buyer group, people who use the smartphone. There are actually 6 ways companies can think differently and reconstruct the market boundaries. What they need to do is thinking outside the box of current industry, substitutes and current customers. Looking across the 6th part of finding a blue ocean. Now, let's talk about the 6th part. And what I will be doing today is actually adding a 7th part. But let's start with the first 6, which you all know from the Blue Ocean Strategy book. First of all, alternative industry. Looking at alternative industries. For example, restaurants versus cinemas. Different form and function, but people go to both cinema and the movies for the same experience. They want to enjoy a night out. Part 2. Looking across strategic groups within the industry. This is about not paying too much attention to what your competitor is doing, But what can you do to bring more customers into the market? Part 3. Looking across the chain of buyers. In other words, which buyer group your industry typically focuses on. Part 4. Looking across complementary products and service offerings. Try to redefine the scope of the services you offer. Try to create an environment that celebrates a different experience. And try to understand in which context your products and services is used. Part 5. Looking across functional or emotional appeal of buyers. If you compete on functionality, which elements can you make more emotional? And if you compete on emotional appeal, which elements can you strip out to make it more functional? And then the last part, the 6th part, looking across time. Don't focus too much on the trends that are affecting your business, how important they seem. But try to create the trends yourself. This way you'll be shaping the market over time and not following only the trends. Now we've arrived at what I would like to call the 7th part, and I would like to add this to the Blue Ocean strategy theory. It's about looking across people's social imaginaries. What are social imaginaries? Well, social imaginaries are developed by a Canadian philosopher called Charles Taylor, and I'll be using this to explain what can be added to make the Blue Ocean strategy more worthwhile. Now, social imaginary is important for trend watching because it is about the way ordinary people imagine their social surroundings, carried in images, stories, legends, and it is shared by a large group of people, if not the whole society. And remember what I said in the beginning, an invention is not innovation. Innovation has to do with audience and the way the audience accept the innovation. And the audience can be a market, can be a government, but also a whole society. There are 3 widely recognized forms of social imaginaries. They are the economy, the public sphere, and the sovereign people. But today I would like to focus on the 4th dimension of social imaginary. This is called the space of fashion, because I think this is very important if you're studying trend watching. The space of fashion is one in which we sustain a language of signs and meanings. A language that's constantly changing. It matters to each one of us, and we act that the other are witnessing the meaning of our action. Spaces of this kind become more and more important in urban societies, dealing with the inescapable context of each other's lives. The space of fashion shapes also the consumer culture, because it determines the way we connect in our world to produce our individual expression and style. This space is also the bloody red ocean in which rivals constantly attempt to win customers. If I would buy an Apple product, it will say something about who I want to be or appear. I want to become a powered agent who can think different as my motto. In doing this, I identify myself with those great-looking Apple products. And I join millions of others in expressing my individuality, I think. But actually, there are millions of people who have iPhones or iPads. So, are you that individual? Moreover, I express it by linking myself to some higher world of people who are different and special. This is, of course, a construct of my fantasy. Modern consumer society is a red ocean of construction of spaces of fantasy. It goes without saying that if we want to create a blue ocean, we need to search for genuine authenticity. So, this is my tip to you. Deconstruct the tagline, the logo, the admired stars, the heroes and slogans. And now look beyond the social imaginary and create authenticity. This is in short my view on the blue ocean strategy. How the theory can be upgraded by adding social imaginary as the seventh part. Thank you. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week back in class.